initiatives and the plans, the roadmap for the time, for the months and years to come. So since we are today being assigned to deal with science and technology departments, so I'll take up one by one 4 or 5, 6 departments that we have associated with, beginning from, and I'll just give you the salient features of each one of them so that you can then build upon the story and you can also seek further details because otherwise we go on for the whole day. So beginning from space because that is a sector which is being most talked about, most fascinating across the world as far as India is concerned. I think there has been a revolutionary change in the last 10 years and the turning point was when Prime Minister decided to what the media fondly described as the unlocking of the space. About 4 years back, the new space reforms were announced and the space sector was opened up to the private players as well. The, the results have been miraculous. We were just about one digit startup about 4 years back. Now we've gone up to 3 digits. And and the priority that is being given by the Prime Minister is evident from the fact that in the vote of account that was announced, because vote of account is a kind of budget which happens in the election year. With the expectation that the full budget would happen after the election by the incoming government. So it's more of a Kamkaji budget. But even in that, instead of including anything else, well, usually, the political governments are set to dole out freebies, etc. It was the startup venture fund for space which was included. So you can understand how much of conviction has gone behind all these initiatives. And in other words, I can say that we never lacked the talent in this country or the human in this country. There was commitment in abundance, but what was possibly lacking was the kind of an enabling milieu which is provided by the political dispensation and by the policy planners, and that has been taken care of after Prime Minister Modi came. So there's a enhancement in the budget. There's also involvement of the private sector, and therefore we are now in a position to claim to be as a frontline nation in each of the sectors, including space. So though we began, I think the most exciting example is that the ISRO was set up in 1969, the year when the first human being landed on the surface of Moon through Apollo 8, the American mission, Neil Armstrong. We were just born, but today we have reached the south pole of the Moon before anybody else. So that's the kind of quantum jump. So that was Chandrayaan 3, which was launched on 14th July 2023 and landed on the August 23. Then we have Aditya and the Provo 3, which was launched just a few days back. We are now out to discover the mysteries of the sun, and Provo 3 is particularly dedicated to Corona, the outermost atmosphere of sun, which is quite exciting and also quite mysterious. In these years only, we have earned a world record of 104 satellites being set up in one go. And you will be excited to know that the space economy has been on the ascent, is now becoming an important part of the overall economy of India. And I'm sure when we talk of 2047 India Viksit Bharat, some of these unexplored sectors like our marine sector, which also I'll talk in a few seconds from now, the ocean sources, and also our space are going to contribute hugely, besides of course the Himalayan sources, which also I'll speak of. And I think what makes an interesting figure is that we have so far launched 432 satellites from other countries, from Sriharikota. So 32 foreign satellites, out of which as many as 397, which means almost 90% or more than them were launched only in the last 10 years after this government came. And there has been a huge earning from the European satellites. India has earned as much as 292 euros, and exciting again, the figures point out 260 out of 292 earned in the last 10 years. Yeah, 260 million, of course. So you can understand how much of a boost it has achieved. So the figures, the statistics speak for themselves. So we don't have to be politically correct or incorrect or get into any argument. Similarly, if you look at the US dollars, out of 172 million US dollars earned, as much as 157 have been earned in the last 10 years. We have a very successful experiment of having a new PSU in place called the NSIR New Space India Limited, which is collaborating with the private companies. And we have an interface called InSpace. And our first generation startups are now being recognized as global potential startups, and some of them have also turned into lucrative enterprises. The second sector, because I'm going to be very brief, taking 2-3 minutes for each of them, is the biotechnology. I'm taking up that because that was one of the most neglected sectors before this government came in 2014. It was hardly known even in the media parlance or even in the scientific circles. We just had 50 biotech startups in 2014 when this government came. Today it's gone up to 9,000 startups. Our bioeconomy was just about 10 billion US dollars, now gone up to 130, and we look forward to 300. So there has been, particularly after COVID, we were able to showcase our potentials. So there have been success stories emanating from the Department of Biotechnology which have earned recognition worldwide. For example, the first one is the vaccine story, where not only we came out with the first ever DNA vaccine, but also gifted it to the rest of the world. And the most distinct feature of this is that India is a country which was never taken very seriously for preventive healthcare, not even for therapeutic healthcare. But here we showed the way for the prevention of COVID. Similarly, the other vaccine, the herpes papillomavirus vaccine, HPV vaccine, is also from India now. It is become quite popular because of its potential to check the prevalence of cervical cancer, which is quite prevalent in India. Though that may not be the only factor, but one of the factors responsible may get checked by this. We have very recently, about 3 months back, come out with first ever indigenous antibiotic called amphitromycin. So far we were depending on antibiotics from outside, beginning from penicillin, which happened somewhere in 1948-49, Alexander Fleming. And thereon, series of generations of antibiotics, whether it was streptomycin, or ampicillin, uromycin, etc., were all developed, tried, and when they proved to be successful, we adopted it. Now, this time we have gifted to the world an antibiotic called amphitromycin. Again, we have partnered with a private pharma called Vocard to market it, and it has been found to be very potent as far as the resistant respiratory infections are concerned. So, in some of those individuals who have a compromised immunity, like in diabetes, in cancers, etc. We have also started our first project in Christian Medical College, Vellore, on gene therapy for some of the relatively difficult to cure diseases. So our first experiment is with hemophilia, which leads to bleeding disorder because of the absence of clotting factor 8. And our first trial is over. I think today itself is going to get published in New England Journal of Medicine, which is one of the oldest journals from United Kingdom, about 200-300 years old. So that successful first trial, by the time we have second, we'll be able to find a genetic cure. And again, the political dispensation has been very supportive. Prime Minister Modi very supporting in all these ventures, which is again evident from the fact that we are among the first countries in the world to have come out with a bioeconomy related policy called Biotechnology E3, which means biotechnology for economy, biotechnology for employment, biotechnology for environment. And this is with the futuristic realization that the next industrial revolution may have a huge bearing on bioeconomy instead of the IT revolution that happened in 1990s. And now the other department is the Council of Scientific Industrial Research, the CSIR popularly known, which has come up in a big way with the success story of what is popularly being described as Purple Revolution. So beginning from a small town in Jammu and Kashmir called Bhadrawa, and then being also emulated in another small hill spot called Gulmarg, The Lavender startup has proved to be a new avenue for youngsters. We have about 3,000 youngsters making a lucrative livelihood. And that has also helped us to prove the point that don't have to be a very big scientist or a very postgraduate or doctorate to be a startup. Many of these boys and girls may not be even undergraduates, but they have the passion, and all the technology, financial and knowledge support is being provided by the government, even the market linkage provided by the government. So we have succeeded in this venture also by vindicating the fact that for any success story and for sustaining startups, you need a healthy synergy between industry, research, academia, and the startups. So industry linkage, right from the beginning, that's what we are trying. Besides that, we have another started a mission called Floriculture, so many of these youngsters are now into that. Our biojet fuel technology is again from the same department. We landed one of the Indian Air Force aircrafts at Leh using biofuel in the aircraft. So biojet fuel was also, both these were displayed in the Republic Day. The Purple Revolution also, you will recall, was a tableau in the Republic Day parade, Kartavya Path, last year, early this year, and so also the biojet. Then we have, the same department has also come out with a two-seater aircraft called Hansa. We have come out with India's first indigenously developed hydrogen run bus from one of our institutes in Pune called the National Chemical Laboratory. We have e-tractors also now. And so in a big way, what is also described as circular economy and wealth to waste or bioeconomy is being contributed by CSIR. The other sector is the Department of Earth Sciences, where, as I said, the marine resources are the one which are going to add value when we reach 2047. We have launched Deep Sea Mission, and the priority that the science initiatives get is evident from the fact that for 2 consecutive years in 2022 and 2023, in his Independence Day addresses, Prime Minister Modi referred to this. So normally, such initiatives do not find much of a prioritization in the Independence Day address, which is said to be the declaration of intent of the government in place. And while next year end or maybe by 2026 we'll have first Indian human being in space called Gaganyaan, simultaneously also we would be sending one human being down into the seabed, 6,000 meter deep, which is possibly the maximum depth of the sea, to explore the wealth inside, the minerals, the metals, the biodiversity, the fisheries which have been totally unexplored, though we have a huge resource with over 7,500 kilometer long coastal area. The mission Mausam is one of the missions launched in the first 100 days of Modi government 3.0, which again shows the priorities of this government, and also contributing to the farmers' welfare, which is one of the priorities of the government. We have a number of apps now. You don't have to, the agriculturist does not have to wait for the forecast or reach out anywhere. We have a Meghdoot app for weather agriculture, a Mausam app for weather, a Damini app for lightning. And 24 new Doppler radars have been set up in the country, across the country. There's been a 40 to 50% improvement in the weather forecast. You might have in mind that sometimes the Delhi weather is not as accurately predicted as it happens to be, but that is because Delhi is no longer the Delhi of the bygone years. You call entire Haryana and UP also Delhi now. So, but we are taking care of that also because our number of installations was not that much. So we need almost 3 times more installations, because sometimes when you are using a weather station sitting in Lutyens or maybe Connaught Place, you may not be accurately predicting what is going to happen in Noida. So we are taking care of that. I think within a year we will be able to achieve that as well. And we have a very successful experiment of thermal desalination. We have launched that plant in Lakshadweep, because you see that this is an island with ocean water all around, which is saline, salty. So water everywhere, not a drop to drink, can't be used. So we have successfully experimented in turning this saline water into normal water, non-saline water by process of evaporating it and allowing the vapors to cool down. So the salt remains sedimented. The other sector is the Department of Science and Technology, where I think the biggest achievement in the recent years, recent 2 years, has been the National Research Foundation, which in the Indian parlance has been appropriately named as Anusandhan. And this is going to be a better version of the similar foundations in the other countries like the National Research Society of America and also one in Europe. So this will again follow the global strategies. 70% of the resource will be from non-government sources. So we have this casual gupshup tendency when we go in the morning, we say, we're talking to go to kya hua, dekho NASA kaam pahunch gaya. But we don't realize, even sometimes even the media, that NASA is not resourced by government alone. So government can't be funding or providing resources for everything. So now we have started following the same strategies because now we are looking forward to achieve the global benchmarks and reach the global levels. So 70% will be from outside the government sources. 1 lakh crore has already been here funded again in first 100 days of Modi government 1.0 as a government support, and it is in the process of being constituted. Soon we will have a CEO also in place. There's a new geospatial policy now. You can, and as a result of which, as also some deregulation of the drones, and our Swamitra program is one of the very notable examples where the mapping of the farms, the land can be done by the individual himself, the citizen himself. You don't need a revenue officer for that, using drones and using satellites. And of course, we have in a big way consciously sought to support the youngsters, the startups, and the women through programs like Inspire Manik, which has so far benefited nearly 9 lakh students, to be precise, 8,88,561. Then Inspire Scholarship for the higher ones. We have our institute in Trivandrum called the Chitra Institute, which has earned worldwide reputation for producing cost-effective medical instruments, the heart valves, etc. Then coming to atomic energy, we have 24 nuclear plants in the country. But what is notable is, as I said in the beginning, statistics speak for themselves. So it's not what I say or what is contradicted by an opponent. Our nuclear capacity in 2014 was just 4,780 megawatts, 4780 megawatts. In 10 years, it has gone twice. It is today 8,180. So from 4780 to 8180. What was the capacity created in 60 years is equal to what has been created in the last 10 years. And in the same pace, our future projection says that by 2031, 32, maybe in the next 8 years, we are going to go up further, almost 3 times, to 22,480, 22480. So for the benefit of your taking down, 2014 it was 4780 megawatts. In 2024 it is 8180 megawatts. In 2031-32 it will be 22480 megawatts. And so also our generation is on the increase. And we have now diverted, as I think rightly living up to Homi Baba's declaration when he said, when there was a lot of controversy of whether to go in for the atomic program or not. Only because Hiroshima had just happened a few years back. So Homi Baba said that our program will be dedicated totally to peaceful purposes. And now we have started living up to that. We are contributing hugely to healthcare sector. We have come out with a number of isotopes for the first time, which are being used by Tata Memorial Hospital, which is also run by the same department in Mumbai. And we have also launched ourselves into the expansion of this hospital. We have come up with a hospital in Mohali and also elsewhere. Similarly, in the agriculture sector, so far nearly 70 crops have been developed through mutagenesis by interventions through atomic energy and other factors. For the defense sector, we have come out with cost-effective, lightweight, bulletproof jackets. And very soon, as I said, we are now in a frontline nation. We no longer wait for things to happen. As I was saying yesterday also, that television happened in America in 1950s and we got to see the first Chitrahar in 1970s. This is no longer so. Just as we are first in the bioeconomy policy, we are first to reach the South Pole in atomic energy also. We are among the first to launch a program for small modular reactors, which will be known as Bharat Small Reactors. And we have an advantage because these reactors are said to be of a lower capacity, less than 300 megawatt. And in India, we already have some of the smaller reactors in the earlier phases, which can be converted rather with a relative ease. And uh, and, and of course, uh, just one point which might be of interest is that you've already finished discussing space. Are going to have our own space station, uh, unlike others. We are among the first to have that after maybe US and one or two other countries, which will be known as Bharat Antariksh Station by 2035. And by 2040, we might be landing an Indian on the surface of the moon. So thank you, gentlemen.
So last time that Bharat Mandapam, we were talking about that AACI. You said that that needs to be more publicized. You had made a remark there, sir.
Yeah, what was it?
So about the Academy of the CSR, when you were giving the doctorates, so you said that the media needs to be more sensitized about that.
Yeah, it's not media's fault. I think we have not reached out as much as I did. So I was telling the director. So we have an institute in Ghaziabad, which is unique, and we would also like you to visit, and you can inform us. We'll facilitate that whenever you wish to. This is known as the Institute of AICEE. So it is Institute of Industrial Research and Education, something like that, which is awarding degrees, including PhDs, and on pan-India basis. And one of the unique programs, which I think is also inspired to an extent by the new education policy, NEP 2020 national, we have IPhD, the industrial PhD, which means that right from the initial stage of taking up a PhD research or thesis, you would have the involvement of the industry as well. So you will be spending time with the industry, also taking inputs from industry. So when you pass out, you don't pass out simply as a PhD scholar. You actually pass out with a PhD scholar who also has the potential to be an entrepreneur. So that was what I was talking
Right.
about. And it has, it's I think one of the first, and it has it is one of the newer institutes. It was set up just a few years ago.
Hi, sir. Okay. So, is it correct to say that our technologies are not just developed; they are highly affordable per unit cost, like in space and all, for the as compared to the global launch facilities and all?
No, sorry.
So, our technologies are not just developed, but they are highly affordable also when it comes to per unit
No,
cost.
absolutely. No, that is, if you see across this, they are much more cost effective. Now, for example, when I was talking of, while talking about the Bardot Science Technology, the Chitra Institute, our medical instruments are now finding an export potential also. And that is also attracting medical tourism from other countries. So that is one example. So similarly, our vaccine and also our space, because Chandrayaan is just about 600 crore, which is much lesser compared to the simultaneous Russian mission that happened with more than 200 crore, 2,000 crore, sorry. And interestingly, the other department, because the 6, 7 departments that we are associated with, though we are not talking about that, the administrative department, administrative reforms and public grievance department, ARPG, where we were the nodal department to carry out Prime Minister's ambitious campaign of Swachhata. We started observing 1 month every year, October, beginning from Gandhi Jayanti, from 2021. And 3 years, 21, 22, 23, 24, this has been fourth. Sorry, 22. So in 3 years, we earned 2,364, I think, more than 2,000 crore by just disposing of scrap. Most of the electronic scrap, because if the mic goes off, even you guys just leave it and replace it. You don't know where it's been left. So we started disposing, and it's become a quite a message socially. Also, many of the housewives now turn up to ask us where do we dispose of this. So why I'm saying in the context of what you asked is that our scrap sold for as much as 4 times the Chandrayaan cost. So we are actually very cost effective, and that again credit goes to our scientific experts, because when the Chandrayaan, for example, goes, it takes time. It starts from the inner orbit, then gradually comes out. Finally, when the gravitational forces no longer exist, it dives into the next orbit. So it's like you are driving a car on a slope, trying to save the fuel. So if it has to go straight, then it would require more fuel. So that's why we might take time, but we are very cost effective in our movement missions.
Sir, I got two questions. Looking at the security concerns of India, because we have got a neighbor like China and Pakistan, how many satellites we are going to launch for intelligence gathering?
Okay, a second.
And the second part is that how many foreign satellites have we launched so far, how much revenue has been earned, and how many countries have been approaching us for launching their satellites?
No, I think I answered the second part. I'll repeat for your benefit. So far, the number of foreign satellites launched is 432. But what is more notable is that out of these 432, 397 were launched in the last 10 years after Prime Minister Modi came. So more than 90% launching. So we have actually fast-tracked all these processes. If you go by earning, so far from the European satellites, because you have a European Space Agency called ESA, so they also take charge of most of the European countries. From European satellites, we have earned 292 million euros, out of which again 260 million have been earned in the last 10 years. And from the American satellites, we have earned 172 million US dollars, out of which 159 in the last 10 years. And as far as the first question is concerned, though I will not go into the nitty-gritty of it because I don't like to, I never jump the gun. That's more for the Defense Ministry to answer. But as far as the information gathering is concerned, most of our satellites are which are navigation satellites, which are communication satellites, also capable of catering information as far as the defense inputs are concerned. So all of them have that capability.
Sir, the green jet fuel, what is the progress on that and when the commercial production would begin? Because we have been hearing about this for the last 2-3 years, about the research part in it, and you have also elaborated on it. But when the real...
Well, actually, yes, you're right, the last 2-3 years, but we have substantiated the success of it. As I said, we did use it as possibly first of the maiden utilities in one of the Indian Air Force aircrafts that landed in Leh, and gradually, of course, when the scale goes up, we'll be able to put it for further use also. But the progress is quite fast, and that is in biojet also. We are in the process of that's precisely what is bioeconomy, because you see, when we are into biofuels, that will gradually reduce, and that may be from biodegradable products, the manures, etc. That can be from plastic, that is also from hydrogen. So when we get into big way in this, that will reduce our dependence on petroleum. So when we say Viksit Bharat and also Atmanirbhar Bharat, we have to scientifically analyze how do we reach there. So our dependence on most of the petroleum countries, because now almost 70-80% our dependence is on the fuel which is petrol related. So gradually, I think in the next few years, though it will take time, we have set a target in COP meeting. Prime Minister set the target of net zero by 2070, which means by then everything would be free of these gas emissions and the carbon dioxide emissions.
So coming to Purple Revolution, what are the plans to expand the lavender farming across Himalayan states?
I'm glad you asked that. Actually, like ocean and space, the Himalayan resources also had remained unexplored till a few years back. Though we have a number of states lying in the lap of Himalayas, beginning from Jammu, Kashmir, Himachal, Uttarakhand, Arunachal, and the Purple Revolution, of course, we are promoting it and very consciously doing so, because we started off a few years back very guarded way, being not sure how far we would be able to move. But what is encouraging is that now it is on its own attracting the stakeholders. We had a team from Himachal, specially deputed by the Chief Minister there and assigned to the Divisional Commissioner of Shimla to go and find out what was happening in Bhadrawa in Jammu and Kashmir. And now they have a military. Uttarakhand again, Chief Minister's office is personally taking interest. We have started there also. And also in other parts where the topography is similar. It has, and I think the most interesting feature is that there are some boys from the corporate sector who have given up their job and got back to this because they find the growth healthier, easier, and being on their own instead of reporting to another boss. So we have at least two of them because I try to reach out to them for my own learning. So at least two of them I've met. One was B.Tech, the other was an MBA. Both happened to be, PG mates in Bangalore. So they learned about it and got back to this.
So do we have any timeline for the space activities bill that is required to operationalize the space policy? And also, similar thing, you have decided to invite the private sector in the atomic energy sector as well. So what legislative changes would be required for that?
No, actually, not invited private sector in the sense that we are inviting in the space sector or biotechnology. Like for example, space, we are now allowing them to use our launching facility. We are allowing them to develop rockets and launch from our station. So we are actually partnering with them. Similarly, and that in space is the interface which negotiates that. Similarly, in biotechnology, we have an kind of an interface called BIRAC, which also, and all these stories of different vaccines, etc., happen through that. It is not so in atomic energy for reasons of confidentiality and security concern. There we have full-fledged partnership on this of this nature only with the PSUs, the public sector units, maybe with IOCL India Corporation, like that, not with the private companies. Private involvement is only to the extent of their offering their land to develop a plant or offering their equipment for our use, but we don't allow them to, engage in our premises or use. So it's limited. It's not private participation in that sense. Just maybe private indirectly providing our requirements or through financial assistance or otherwise, but not partner in that sense.
The space activities bill, any timeline on that?
We're working on that, but we have already made a big headway with the space reforms itself. So this is virtually already in the reform mode.
Sir, I have two questions. The first is with One Nation, One Subscription scheme that the cabinet has recently approved. It is said that one of its key features is that it will promote multidisciplinary research. So what multidisciplinary research and practical application from science perspective can we expect? And my second question is related to fintech. Is the science ministry doing anything in tandem with the finance ministry to develop this sector?
No, I'm glad. What's your name?
Adarsh, All India Radio.
Oh, good. No, I have to thank you. This is something I should have said. So I have to apologize. This One Nation, One Subscription is one of the fantastic ideas. And again, it was part of the first 100 days of decision of Modi government 3.0. So I'm glad you pointed out what I missed out. I should have actually. So this, see, in multiple ways, is particularly going to be of huge benefit to the education institutions, particularly those in B towns, and it's going to benefit crores of students living in those areas. What was happening is that many of us who've gone through research, even I have gone through, we set out with a project and we looked for a journal, we would not be able to find it because the institution was not subscribing to it. It's not easy, particularly for the government colleges, government universities, or even government medical schools to subscribe to all the journals, So now some of them are available online, but that too they are available on subscription. Otherwise they just put out an abstract, not the full paper. So it would be a great constraint for the research scholars and even for other students. So by having an arrangement where you have a common subscription for the journals, you create a pool, and already 1,000 crore, 1,000 crore, yeah, has already been earmarked as an initial initiative. So we would be able to facilitate the democratization and accessibility of research references and journals. So that's a great idea. Now, secondly, now with the national education policy, what you are saying is already inherent to that, and I'm glad that you asked that, because what I try to simplify often when I talk to students is, I said my generation was the prisoner of the subjects chosen by my parents. In the sense that if my parents wanted me to be a doctor and I got into biosciences or biology and didn't make it after class 12, somehow I had no other choice but to do graduation in the same subject. Then again no choice but to do the post-graduation thing. Then meanwhile I would try, some civil services, this, that, some teaching. Finally I might end up a PhD in biosciences, unemployed PhD. Now it's no longer so. You can juggle your subjects. You can combine economics with biotechnology or biochemistry. So fantastic. After class 12, you can change also your subjects. And 6,000 crore the first installment, one subscription one. And in some of the universities, it is come out to be very exciting experiment. For example, some of the colleges affiliated with Madras University, we came across students who were combining literature with sciences. And of course, the students are all like you, so for them, it doesn't, they are into it. They have not seen the earlier times. But their teacher, who have seen the transition, so I asked one of the teachers, the lady there, she said, even I am fascinated. When I go there to teach literature and if I find the students of science sitting there. So they have a different kind of approach. The mindset is also different.
Just wanted to clarify on that.
The Department of Science and Technology in the last year, this year budget was 8,029 crore. It was like a marginal increase from the previous year, which was around 7,931 crore. This year's budget, Department of Biotechnology in specific, there was just a marginal increase. With so much of things happening in biotechnology, as you said. What do you expect from the in the upcoming budget?
Yes, you have a point, because this bio E3 policy was followed by a bio ride initiative, which means that we had three heads in this expenditure as far as biotechnology. One was dedicated to entrepreneurship, the other was research, like that. So, and third we added biofoundries. So the other two plus extra budget from biofoundry, we thought we would get some height, which we are still we are looking forward to, because there is some change in the financial procedures. It is now account based. You have to open separate accounts for each one of them, and that I think the finance people are better aware of. It's called TSA. That is Treasury. So TSA is, you have to then take them into cognizance, and so it has become a little, because it's a transition. So we could not actually spend as much as we wanted to. So that is a result of which we may have to struggle to get more. But gradually, of course, it will open, and with the National Research Foundation, we will have a lot of contribution from the private sector. And in biotechnology, we already have an arrangement through BIRAC. Now this vaccine, of course, also we developed it, we did the trials, and this Bharat Biochem,
Biotech,
Bharat Biotech, they developed it. Similarly, this cervical related, this Pune, they are doing it, Serum Institute. So we are making up, because we are very much convinced we can't be depending solely on government sources. And even the other countries with whom we are competing are not depending on government sources alone.
So for the upcoming budget, what would be your expectation?
No, I will not spell out the figures because we are still, pleading with them. Thank you. Thank you, because I have to rush.